He was severely swollen. And he has very handsome offices. I suppose that is where our tax money goes. Then the district attorney dropped in and we had a very nice talk. From which I gathered that mother, rather pleased and certainly without suspecting it, had been that morning tactfully interrogated by the police. Considering mother since, in the light of that secret she so carefully preserved, I believe that she was as much a victim to the Crescent as its defender. It had done to her what it had done to most of us. It had definitely contracted our lives until it was a vital matter that in hot weather our candles be placed on ice before using so they would burn evenly on our dinner tables, or that our doilies be rolled over cones of old papers, and not folded. Congresses might come and go, but it was still essential that our table napkins be ironed on the wrong side and then polished on the right side, that on certain dates our furs be brushed, sunned and put into domestic storage, and that on certain other days the process be repeated in reverse order. Out in the world women were taking their places and living their own lives, but our small rules of living and conduct ignored all that. Our women servants still had to be in at 10 and up at 7. Dependent women relatives were still cared for, if somewhat grudgingly, as witness Lydia Talbot. Mrs. Dalton, cutting flowers in her garden with her hands and complexion protected against the sun, was simply following the tradition, as was mother when she served a glass of wine and a biscuit to one of our rare callers. And Mrs. Talbot might lock herself into her heart's content, it was her house and her affair. Was it from this slavery of the unimportant that Emily Lancaster had tried to escape? That was the problem I carried into my room that afternoon, for if Emily had taken that money, it opened up something so dreadful that I was afraid to face it. Suppose that Mrs. Lancaster had roused some night or other to find Emily drawing out that chest, or fumbling with its locks as it lay underneath the bed? And suppose then that the invalid had asked for Jim, the next day perhaps, to come and examine her hoard, to count it for her bag by bag and coin for coin as it lay on the bed? Then what? Was it so hard to suppose the rest? Hadn't Lizzie Borden been accused of having killed her stepmother with an axe? And hadn't our own grocer's daughter turned on him a year ago and stabbed him in the neck with a knife, so that only the proximity of the hospital and assistance had saved his life? I do not know when I have put in as utterly wretched an hour. All that I knew of Emily came back, the sacrifice of her life and of any real chance for marriage, and the possibility of some furious inner rebellion that had suddenly flared into desperate action. That was what Dr. Armstrong had said, to extreme violence. Even to murder. For she could have done it. I saw that clearly. She had had that half hour between 3:30 and 4, for we had only her word that at 3:45 she had opened her mother's door and found her still asleep. All of it, the plotting about the room on Liberty Avenue, the direct and indirect purchasing of the weights, the conning of various steamship folders, pointed to long and careful planning in the expectation of escape. Then, with everything ready, she could not escape. The police watched her. The house was under guard. Even her own nerves betrayed her, for I had seen her myself in a state of utter collapse. But I brought myself up with a jerk, for on Sunday night she herself had been killed. She had not expected to be killed. She had gone downstairs and eaten an apple. Whatever guilt she may have felt, at least she apparently felt secure. Had eaten an apple and then wandered out into the warm night air. For all her complaints of someone trying to enter the house at night before her mother's death, now quite calmly she started out. There were guards about, but no one saw or heard her. What was she after, that Sunday night? The bird cage? Then what was in it? Did she keep, in a seed cup or under the sliding bottom, the keys to that hidden room of hers and to the Liberty Avenue house? That would explain a great deal, but not all. Perhaps the key to the chest had been there too, taken from her mother's neck after the killing. They had found it not far from her body. But then who had taken the bird cage? Was it Holmes? It was possible, I thought. Almost certainly on that Thursday he already knew about the gold and where it was. But so far as he was concerned, the killing of Mrs. Lancaster did not help him, but rather hindered his plans. There was the chance of quick discovery that the money was gone, and also that Miss Emily would break down and confess. Yet he had made no immediate move to get the trunk. It was 6 days before he made that final and fatal move of his. I went back to Emily. Was it Holmes on that Saturday night after her mother's death, when someone had tried to enter Emily's room from the porch roof, and she had escaped to the Talbot house? But she had seemed to know or suspect who the intruder was, or rather the intruders, for she had said, Hide me, George. Hide me somewhere. They're after me. She had known then, or guessed, who it was. She knew she was in danger, for all her locked bedroom door.